portal their metal into that T2 lab. So your attack is coming at near perfect timing. There's also some really juicy stuff going on here. Those converters are very close to that wind, and the wind is...
This is AllReasonNoLogic's road to OS25. Join us as Tom battles to double his OS starting at 12. Hit subscribe and leave your comments and tips. To the battlefield commanders.
Welcome back to another season of competitive chaos as we kick in for the next road to OS25. After watching Praetus punch his ticket last season and grind his way to OS25, it's now Tank Tom's turn to step it up. Tom isn't starting on the typical OS of 16.67 though. A little over a year ago in the PvP world, his OS fell down to 12.67. That may have been partially my fault as I was in most of those games. So he retired until now. Before getting on the bus, so to speak, Tom has taken part in a couple strong games as part of Praetus Road in Season 1. Go check out those games. And now he's on a modest OS of 14.79. Tom has decided that with the fun that was had on Praise Road, let's make this official. The road is on. Tom's strengths: he's a beast at T1 engagements. His early micro, unit comp and positioning are often excellent, and he can hold or break a front line with smart tactical decisions. But as with any long road, there's room for growth. What we're going to be watching closely across the series is consistency, both in decision making and in eco scaling. He's had a few games where the power stalls, the metal overflows, or delayed teching has cost him dearly. We would love to see some improvement expanding in his mid to late game skill set and tactical decisions. That said, he's already been tightening things up, and if anyone can level up over time, it's Tom. So buckle up, we're on the road again. The bus has left the station, and it's going to be possibly bumpy but brilliant right to OS 25.
Just like to interject about one thing in there. Tank Tom is not doing this by choice. We have forced him into it. Blink twice, Tank Tom, if that's true, or if that's a lie. Blink 3 times.
Can you hear them?
There you go. There you go. For those intrepid listeners that are paying a lot of attention, you'll know how many blinks Tom did, and you will be the only ones who know whether this is by choice or by force. So what are we looking at on this map? We're starting this one out on Delta Siege Drive, which is easily my favorite map, and one that we learned quite a lot on in our early versus bots, about map control, about line control, and about breaking through and attacking from unusual directions. The OS in this one, quite mixed. Because of Tank Tom's low OS, he's fitting into those low-level lobbies. For anyone who wants to be doing this on their journey, would highly recommend that you filter your lobbies in a similar fashion. The lower the lobby, the less people will play as you expect them, so you will learn a lot very quickly because you'll have to adapt to abnormal strategies. Tank Tom, why don't you run us through what your plan is for this game? I see you've already got some units on the front line, even though you have started in the back.
The reason that I picked this spot was so that I can be that support for the front, but also have a bit of a breather so that when we do need to make that transition, I've got a little bit of time to do it. And I figured being down here, I've got the opportunity to support all of this bottom side, and depending on how that goes, potentially provide some assistance top or be that swing sort of player to plug the gaps as needed.
Very nice. A good little spot right there, and a very interesting way of doing it. I do see that you're getting some LLTs just to close yourself off as well. Whilst I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a metal investment in some of the higher OS games, and these lower ones where you can't necessarily rely on your front, definitely a good plan. And getting those units out to the front to help out is a good strategy. It's taken some of the pressure off, and as you can see, based on the differences in the front line in your particular lane, you're going with the opponents mostly building units and your allies mostly building defensive structures. Those defensive structures will have a great early advantage against short-range units, but as soon as those rocket bots or any sort of artillery tank comes out, then all of that will be for naught.
Unfortunately, this brown player here has some LLTs that are not turning on because their energy stalled, so A little bit of a demonstration of that skill level in this lobby. Only an OS of 2 and 2 chefs from this player, so Tom is definitely going to have to be that player that
Oh.
steps up.
This is painful to see. Oh, it does
hadn't
manage
noticed
to
it
make
was-
it out, but that's
Yeah.
quite a rough time.
I hadn't noticed it was quite that bad down there at this point during the game.
Hey, as long as you're doing you, Tom.
Yeah, so you can see that I know there's a gap in the middle here, so I'm going exploring to see what I can find.
And this is one of the things you can do when you're in these lower OS lobbies. You can really turn the play on everyone's head. There's going to be a lot of overreaction or underreaction to this sort of play. As you can see, only once Tank Tom actually engages that line do they start changing what they're doing, and is managing to fight them one at a time and getting reasonably efficient trades. Something which I might add is that had you not attacked, I don't think that the teal player would have even noticed until you were in their base. So you might have been able to get all 5 down the side and maybe taken out the wind. But even still, trading efficiently there and pulling units off the front line is working out nicely for you, especially considering that the blue com is heading up there and the green player is sending units there. So anything you can do to relieve pressure on that front line is well and truly worthwhile.
That was my intention for this game, was to support those frontline players, remove that pressure where I can. I knew that fighting the front on blue was a bad idea, but seeing as I could get behind it and take out some X's and stop those reinforcements, not that I stopped them for long, but it was at least one chain's worth that isn't going to be fighting on the front line.
Giving your allies an opportunity to get back into it after a slow start. Just quickly looking up at the top half of the map, it is approximately a stalemate, which is what can happen on this one, but with your team slightly ahead, having grabbed that high ground position, getting an agitator up there is going to do wonders for helping Maroon, who is currently in a bit of a losing position, getting shelled quite nicely by the purple and the light blue player. But let's focus on what's actually important in this game, which is Tank Tom. Tank Tom, you've left a lot of the eco back at your base, and you're just starting to rekindle it, getting a few extra builders, getting some res bots, and putting down some additional wind. You've got your comm moving forward and just building stuff as it needs as you go.
Can I just
Why don't you run
in?
us through the importance of res bots in this early stage of, well, in all stages of this game?
Before you do that, Tom, I just want to point out the build queue. So there wasn't much of a build queue before. Tom has now dropped down some wind. What I probably would do as a personal advice is maybe just interrupt that build queue and put down 2 more construction bots before you had put up that construction turret, because that did take almost a minute to get up. I think it takes about a minute for a construction turret to get up from a T1 builder. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also queuing in that chainsaw, although chainsaws are brilliant. It's a very early chainsaw costing 750 metal, and I'm thinking that your air player, seeing as you have an air player, should take the role of defending against air. So I'd just be going the cheap pop-ups, or are they called nettles?
I probably should have gone with just the
yeah, the nettle.
yeah, the nettle.
Or even a couple of crossbows out of your lab. The having mobile anti-air is reasonably good. It's not going to stop a large bombing wave, but your
that thing there, that
800 metal.
That's 2 centurions, or sorry, that's 3 or 4 centurions, is it? Yes, bad maths.
If you have a look at the front line here,
yeah,
I've noticed that there's a slight gap. So I've gone to see what I can find. So I can see that the front on the bottom is largely stalemating. The pink player's holding pretty much with walls of Rocketeers. I've noticed there's a gap to be able to get up onto that top side. And with that top basically having a static front, it gives me the opportunity to come in behind it.
Grabbing at least 1 mix, and then gonna try and, swing around the rest of the way. If you hug that cliff, you should stay out of range of that LLT. That's more luck than anything else, just because of the LLT placement, but it is still definitely the right move to try and exploit any of these decisions.
We do have
nice
some
thing
vision, so we can see that there's the front and then not much behind it, and I figured there wasn't going to be much at all behind that front.
Good engage on those thugs right there. You managed to get the surround bonus on them and move on through. Pawns have ridiculously good DPS. Unfortunately for you, there is an LLT in the way, but correctly deciding that you can't beat it with 5 pawns, you've headed around on and through, and I would be highly
Juicy target in that back corner. I hope you go for green.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely without the comment.
I was about to say, if you make it this far in, I would be highly suspicious of the fact if they had any defenses in the back line. It does not look like they do, and it doesn't look like they've got any opportunity to get anything up because they've poured all their metal into that T2 lab. So your attack is coming at near perfect timing. There's also some really juicy stuff going on here. Those converters are very close to that wind, and the wind is all nice and together, and so long as chain reaction city. We've got a short out if you're interested on how to space your wind to prevent that from happening, but that is huge damage. Those 5 pawns and I believe it was 2 ticks going through and clearing out half of one of their eco players. Eco
significantly changed that eco at the top right of your screens there. Red team now 10 to 15% in front.
And that's one of the things I've been trying to do. You mentioned the ticks, because the ticks have got the greater vision range. It means that rather than running the pawns into things and then they start dying, you can actually have some idea of what you're about to hit before you get to it.
One of the other things that little attack did was it did stop the light blue player from sending their units down as they were chasing you, and it allowed for Maroon, with the support of the agitator, to swing on through and break that defensive position, and now is grabbing a good amount of reclaim through the entire base. This is just touching on what I was mentioning before about the importance of those resbots. If you look at that top half of the map, there is, in fact, if you look all around the map, there is a lot of metal all over the place.
That's a T2 lab.
Most of that metal at the top wouldn't be there if the blue player was on top of his reclaim.
Yeah, you're doing a good job using your commander to reclaim. I just want to jump back to your move. That was really like match deciding movement. There was a lot of pink units. Inaction loses games. You saw the opportunity and you took it, and that's what has caused this push. That meant that brown's been able to push up, or the dark red, pink's been able to push down here and distract. So giving you a lot of time to do your thing, reclaim metal on the front line and scale your eco. One thing you were doing back here, you were building that chainsaw at the same time as the advanced metal extractors. I would have put a pause on that and focus all build power on getting those mexes up, and then go back to the lab. Same goes with the bot lab. I would have paused that and 100% of the metal going to the mexes, and then put everything back online.
Jumping to the front line, the pink player, all those units are now getting engaged on that front base. They've followed Tom's example, they've seen an opportunity, and they're heading in. The firepower going onto mostly defenses to start with, but now that they're in it, they're going to get a lot of damage. You'll note the way that this has been set out, not too much chain reacting, so the units actually have to get their fire on if they want to break the base, but that is one of the things that I mentioned about the micro skill in this level of play. You saw green had plenty of units, but they pulled them forward and didn't engage, allowing for this entire section to be cleared out almost completely. That definitely could have been cleared up while the units were all hovering on top of that mex.
Nicely done by the pink player, and we've got a com that's gone down against the dark red. Is that maroon or is it brown? I can never tell.
I'd call it maroon.
I would say maroon.
This, I think, is a potential mistake. These thugs are so badly injured that one LLT has just taken out most of the force. Seeing what you saw, breaking down the defenses, breaking the comm, there's actually a good opportunity just to pull back for a moment, allow your stronger thugs just to move in front so they can tank the LLT damage, maybe even siege them down with the aggravators.
These aggravators could have taken them out at 0 loss.
Yeah, with the fight command, they can take out the T1 static defense.
But the most important thing about that is positioning. There were ones with fractional amounts of health at the front. Just taking a second to rearrange them so that your healthier ones are at the front keeps the DPS of the weak ones and uses the health as a resource.
I'm trying to get these Rocketeers up on that edge to gel with the lab that hopefully, I think it was just in range or just out of. I figured seeing as we broke that, I might as well keep on some pressure to that base.
Where have those T2 hounds gone? Oh, they've gone up to the top.
Yes, they were definitely needed up the top, and there is again a lot of reclaim available here. If the blue player just focuses on building energy and a couple of grave robbers to grab all of that, then they should be able to get right back into the game and compete
Speaking
easily
of
with
energy,
the
if you
Maroon
have a look at
income.
my base, I've eaten my lab to get a fusion reactor up. I probably shouldn't have dropped the vehicle lab yet.
Yep,
But
at
the
this point I'd
intention
be
was,
eating it for that extra 200 odd metal to throw into the fusion, but you've got the right idea here. Scale while you can. The front line is quiet.
Yeah, reclaiming that
yeah, I've
energy
had
as well, which is a good idea.
res bots eating that whole bottom front for a while now. And because it's been basically a stalemate of bots into bots and some T1 static defense, I made the call of if I go for vehicles, and at this point I'm transitioning into T2 as well, I should be able to roll through this bottom front and then continue the push from there.
And that's one of the best ways to win Delta Siege dry. This is such a big open space. Once you break the line, it's very easy to roll on through and take out the back lines. If you try and fight your way through the high ground position, you end up in what looks like it's about to happen, where you have things like gauntlets on the high ground, or you can just be units shelling across the ramp, and you have to deal with all of that, and you have to deal with the opponent having vision and you not having vision, which is the high ground advantage. That good on Door Hinge though, seeing it and degunning it.
Got an agitator or 3 in the middle of the map now from the blue player, the 20 OS player, the only 20 OS player in the game. Only 2 chefs though. They are enough to scare your team off of any sort of pushes, but we do have maces and thugs as well as a couple brutes that would definitely be able to push in. You will take a lot of damage though if you go forward, so best to stay out of that range, which is giving the blue team control over the middle of the map right now. So I think T2 is going to be the answer at this stage. Maybe even from that lab there, an ambassador would have gone down quite well to shell them at range, but I'm going to guess that you're going with your favourites being the Jags. Am I right?
We'll find out in a second.
Bit of a
Have you
no-no.
forgotten
I believe
how
it
you played
was.
this game?
You've gone into a second fusion now. Decided to reclaim your lab. Want that metal back, and that fusion should go up pretty quickly.
If you're going to be doing those metal shenanigans, would highly recommend a storage just in case, because you can also use it to nab metal from other players who overflow. I don't think you did. I think I had the wrong player selected there, but for a moment it did look like that overflow. But again, the front line is quiet. The
Do you reckon?
And what
I reckon it's
made
pretty
that
risky
decision.
right now.
they've
I'm
invested
holding.
3,600 into gauntlets.
If this player pushed, if Rever pushed, that's definitely enough to push
They
through.
haven't pushed all game.
Yeah, so you've read,
So
you've
I
read
was-
the game.
Yeah, relatively
Really
comfortable that I had that
important,
extra.
people, if you are that low OS, like if you feel that your team's not ahead on eco and it's a stalemate because you're waiting for your team to get ahead on eco, the other team's probably going to get there first. If you've not got a good feeling about them, you need to use the units that you've got. So this blue team here, I'd be trying to get as much value as possible, and with every moment that's passing, it's probably too late now. These players here, the brown player and the pink player, are continuously building units, and the blue team is not, because they had previously produced them. So if you're going to build them, use them. How are we going with that fusion? It's up, and we're getting converters coming
That
down.
second fusion's up.
I
The
would,
T2 labs.
once again, I'd be focusing my build power on the energy conversion because your energy is quite full right now.
There it goes.
Beautifully done. Obviously, you're listening to me in game in the replay. Good foresight.
While Tank Tom is getting his units out, one thing I want to mention is when you see 3 gauntlets on the front line, that's a 3,600 metal investment. That is a real sign that you can either eco or you can go around them. I did like Pink's agitator, because Pink's agitator changed the shape of the game in the top of the map. It completely removed the purple and the light blue's ability to deal with maroon. But here it's just adding to what it was already a straight line defense. And you can see, even though there's 3 agitators, just these thugs and these tanks pushing through and getting past them. Not quite controlled the way that I'd like to see them. They're not actually taking out the gauntlets, but because there are so many units and so many pushes, all the players have somewhat coordinated this and are trying to break on through, and just pushing past them is actually enough if there's going to be no defense further behind. If you can kill the eco of someone that's built gauntlets, or of the team that the gauntlets are protecting, then you've done your job with your army. And so, despite the fact that the blue team was looking in a very good position down here because they didn't use their forces, as Twig said, and the red team did, we now have enough stuff coming that's probably going to wipe out this teal player. And this teal player is responsible for a lot of the defenses.
To answer the title of this video, to pork or not to pork, the answer is to not pork, in my opinion. Building those towers just don't compete with moving units, because once you win, they can go places, and in this case it's into the enemy base.
Yeah, this army's getting on those maces. This is going to be a nasty D-gun trade. There it is. If you're going to get your units into the bases, yes, it's great to kill comms. Don't worry too much about it if you can kill an eco instead. If those units had spread out and just moved through that base, they would have done a ludicrous amount of damage.
Oh, here comes Tom.
The job of opening up the front line for me.
This one ball should be enough to take out these 2 comms, if Mike read correctly.
And I believe that's what I do with it, just keeping it out of range and running them around.
Very close to being in range.
It was out
of
range
for you.
No
range for you.
Are we going to see this go down? No.
I think it might be the second bull that's going to claim a comm. Unfortunately, it is on a move command, but the surround bonus on that Jag made that shot do a lot of damage and take out the comm.
Jags have gone up to deal what they can to the other bases.
Good split C's, but unfortunately that will go down quite easy to a ball. This ball here also not going to trade perfectly, having already taken a little bit of damage. I think we'll go back down to where the action looks like it's going to be. Oh, actually, good pull. I just saw that in the corner of my eye. We're going to see the second comm go down, maybe? Or is this a D-gun ready to happen?
There's no D-gun! That was manually controlled. There was no D-gun.
Oh, does this player have no energy? They're full on energy. It was just poor performance.
I was expecting to lose that one there.
You got lucky.
You got lucky there,
Seige
but
player is not lucky right now. This is going to be a fallen base.
Exactly. The luck there was good, but what's important is that you're killing an eco.
Yeah, I wasn't too concerned whether I was going to lose it or not, because I knew that the next wave was going to come through and achieve the goal, regardless of whether that one lived or died.
And with all that concentration on Tom's line, there's a big spider push coming on the top half of the map that's using the verticality to break on through and push through. It does look like they're going to go straight for purple potentially. Nope, they've stopped and they're now killing. Yeah, there we go. They're now heading towards those back lines, and that is a resign vote right there. Tank Tom helping the front early, then breaking it, and then the rest of the team in the top half of the map doing their part. It's actually crazy that your team won so well on the ground, considering that the other team had one more player than you did. You had an air player who did not contribute until right at the very end.
Okay, yeah, you're looking at that metal produced, and 3 of the highest, 4 of the highest, 5 of the highest at the end of the game were red team. Early game, there were definitely a couple of you. Not you though, Tom. You're quite low there. Maybe a little bit of improvement on the eco that I was talking about needs to be focused on. Probably lack of wind before going into some of the more expensive things that you went into. Metals produced, obviously damage dealt's going to be quite good for all players on the red team. That one push that you did, you can see right in there before the 5-minute mark, I think that was, or maybe it was here with those couple pawns, really made a difference to the economy for the green player, who never really recovered and ended up having the second worst economy of the game, I think. Yeah. What do you reckon, Prey? Pretty entertaining.
Before we roll out of this one, a couple of things that I reckon is definitely worth talking about improvement-wise. On the map, what are we not seeing at the 23-minute mark around Tom's half of the map?
Anti-nuke.
No anti-nuke, Tom. I want to see an anti-nuke out of you by the 15-minute mark from all of your games going forward,
Actually,
provided you're in an eco position.
really important as well is you're not going to get caught up on these lower level games, but as you get better, you went 2 fusion, and that is probably because you read the game. And you had started building your T2 factory. I think you built a third of it before deciding, no, I'm going to go into a second fusion. I would have still built this T2 factory, even if you just put out one ball and microed the absolute shit out of it, reclaimed the lab and built your second fusion, followed by the lab again. Having that one ball to micro while waiting, you didn't have much going on. You had your commander sitting there pretty much in the same position for the last 10 minutes. Yeah, if you have one T2 unit out and it's the first T2 unit on the field and it's a ball, you're going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And considering that Tom definitely hasn't already played his second game, so definitely can introduce these changes to that second game.
Speaking of, so following this game on Tom's road to OS25, it didn't start with a streak. He was handed a Chevron Porc team and had to carry a lot of the weight himself. He played on the relatively new Project SD, or as I like to call it, the donut map. That one in space that everyone's probably seen. And despite fielding probably the strongest army on the map out of both teams and defending on both fronts, the top and the bottom of that donut, his teammates crumbled pretty early, and a resign vote was fulfilled a little bit too soon, in my opinion. So despite a raise from this one to 16.26 in OS, he went back to 15.53 after that one, which we won't be showing, just a few snippets here on your screen. A convincing win and a tough loss for his first 2 on the official road, but a strong individual showing from Tank Tom to kick things off. Guys, get in the comment and give feedback to Tom, and also to the channel. What would you like to see from this series?
Thanks everyone for joining us on this one. And I'll leave this one to Tom to sign out, because this one is his series to boot.
This is first of hopefully not an excessive number of games, but we'll see how we go.
Well, yeah,
And
16 episodes to beat from Prey.
We've got a benchmark. We'll say that we'll make it now, and we'll just edit some episodes together as required to make it work.
Yes, in this episode we have 10 games.
I think at that point we'll leave it here, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us.
See ya.